Okay, now what's all this I hear? About? About your people banning overtime. It's not decided yet. Well, we'll let you know. No good, mate. In your contract's 28th a month. It's also in our contract you speed up the track. Nothing against it, Bab. And chargers, casters, knockout men, no increased pay for increased work. You're not on piecework, mate. Unlike the molders. Oh, for Christ's sake. And obviously coincidence that all the molders white. Look, mate, it's not my fault. All Asians on fixed rates. Not my fault. All the molders white. You ought to see our union. We are our union. 'Cause I don't give a toss. You're black, white, brown, or pink with purple stripes. As long as you keep working, don't. Precisely, Mr. Platt. Well, Mr. Kira, as a shop steward, I have called a meeting. Let you know. The foundry industry. Long hours, hot, dangerous conditions, Asians' lowest pay, least chances of promotion, first to go. Oh, hello, David. Nearly ready for the off. Fine, just run cleaver. Let think it's go. That's great. Mr. Turner. Yes, Tony. You won't forget the poem, will you? Poem. Oh no, of course not. Oh, Dennis. Uh. Just one thing I noticed on the banner. Uh. You've got the flag the wrong way round. Oh, blimey, have I? Doesn't matter. Sadly, no one notices, but perhaps for the next time. Sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, God. Good evening, ladies. Could we. Is there anyone in the box? Technical miracle. Testing, testing. Now we've lost it all together. Testing, testing, testing. One, two, three, four. That's better. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying before being so rudely interrupted, good evening to you all. Now, I've called this meeting, as most of you know, to discuss two things, both of which are related to each other. One is the forthcoming by-election in Tadley, and the other is the possibility of the Patriotic League joining forces with a national organization. And with this in mind, we have here tonight Mr. Maxwell, whose leader, is that right, David? General Secretary, sorry, General Secretary of the Nation Forward Party, a truly patriotic organization, as I'm sure you'll all agree when you've heard what he's got to say. First of all, though, there is the question of paying for the room, and I wonder if someone. I'll do it, Mr. Chairman. Oh, thanks, love. Always collect before the speaker, eh? Now, first of all, I hope you've all seen the new bulletin. If any of you in it, we've got a great new system which might not quite work yet. Anyway, I've got a spare or two. Now, we've gone as far as we dare on some of this. I don't mind what the race relations people say, but the printers get a bit jumpy. Anyway, one thing I would like to draw your eye is on page 4, the item about parasitic worms at the Thorsten Jr., because I did write to the medical officer of health about it. I think he's getting a bit fed up with me, actually. Perhaps eventually he'll get fed up enough to do something about these immigrant problems in our schools. Anyway, he wrote back in his usual soothing vein. I hope sometime he'll realize that the patriotic people of Tadley can't be soothed that easily. One of the things I said was that the thing about these parasitic complaints is that they've passed on by cutlery and using the same toilet. Of course, that's when these people sit on the toilet. Usually they do other things, as you know. And anyway, he didn't say much about that in his reply. Anyway, there was just that one point I wanted to point out before I hand it over to Mr. Maxwell to explain to us all about Nation Forward. Thank you. I think actually I'll dispense with the electronic aid. In fact, I thought, despite Mr. Turner's splendid build-up, that I wouldn't launch off into a great diatribe. I think you all know something about Nation Forward, and I think it'd be a lot more useful if we threw the discussion open now, so that you can ask the questions you want answering, and most importantly, that I can listen to what you have to say. Well, that's stunned into a silence, Mr. Maxwell. Oh, come on, I'm sure somebody. Well, I think one thing people might want to ask is, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Howard, I thought you'd find voice sooner or later. Mr. Chairman, I've been a member of the Conservative Party for over 40 years. That's what I wish to say. Is that a It would be complete anathema to me to support or vote for any other party. Are you saying? However, I am afraid that the party is not that what once it was. It has become craven. Once it represented all the finest values of the middle class, now gangrenists. Yes, well, I'm values sneered at, sniggers over in the party. The young conservatives who often seem more socialist than the socialists themselves. They look embarrassed when you talk about the empire or self-help or discipline. They talk about common market, sneer, and talk about a wind of change. Mrs. Howard, I'm sure it's infiltrated from the left that cryptos, pale pinks, sure of it. I recall it, you will understand, as once it was. That's all I have to say. Mrs. Howard, could I say that yours is exactly our view? Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something. I'm sure what the lady says is true, but it's not just politics. My husband, he can't be here tonight. He lectures at the Poly, and he's become convinced of several things. One is that half the so-called foreign students aren't studying at all. They turn up once, then disappear, and also, it's quite sure at least 75% of the lecturers, some of them are immigrant, are communist. And because of this, he may lose his job, because he's a patriotic person and he makes no secret of it. When they cut back, and they're going to, he'll be the first to go. The union won't lift a finger. And another thing, it's folk like us, who work for Britain, who are suffering the most. Like when they talk about home ownership, the Tories in particular, what happens? Mortgages go up so far we can't afford the payments. So we say, okay, we'll sell. But even that's impossible. Our house is in West Thawston. And you say there that you're from Thawston, and they all start talking pidgin in English. So we can't sell or buy. So people get desperate, really desperate. There seems no way, you see. Anyone else? In my opinion, Mrs. Howard, if anyone else wants. Just one point, Mr. Chairman, following on what the young lady said. The floor is yours. In my opinion, the lady is quite right. It is the silent majority who are suffering in silence as they watch their green and pleasant land become more and more like and the do-gooders. Isn't it time, Mr. Chairman, that we've thought about the victims for change, and hasn't the tide of permissiveness, the erosion of old values, gone too far? That's what they're saying. The people on fixed incomes, with inflation, no big unions protecting them. What about the people without a union? What about us? Look, let me tell you something. I reckon I'm patriotic as you are, but I'm in a union, and I voted Labor all my life. And I'll tell you what's bothering me. I'm in motors, steward in a foundry, and what concerns me with the business like it is that if it's a British firm, it's going bankrupt. And if it's American, some great Detroit tycoon picks up his phone and says, more profit if we shift the lot to Dusseldorf. And there's something else. Because what jobs there are, we're not going to get. I doubt if you know Baron Hastings, where I work, but some dinner time, there's that many turbans in the canteen. It looks like a field of bloody lilies and smells like the black hole of Calcutta. And if one of them gets the push, they're all up in arms, shrieking about discrimination. It's happening now. And I'll be quite frank about I hate him. No one's doing a bugger all about it. That's what bothers me. Not the erosion of your bleeding middle class values. Sooner or later, someone's got to be done. So don't you talk to me. Mr. Chairman, Tony, I think what the last speaker was saying. I mean you're middle class and you lost your business, don't you? I hope you don't mind me saying, but I mean it was the same big firm taking over. And take me, I'm on the dole, and I. Like you were saying, it just does seem to me what class you are. Same kind of. If I could perhaps come in there. Well, my friends, I said I thought I'd learn a thing or two from you, and by God was I right. We've heard about subversion in the colleges. From Mrs. Howard about the Tory party, and from Mr. Atwood at the local industry, but it's my view that the last speaker really grasped the point, that what we have in common is greater by far than what divides us. I'm sure, for instance, that Mrs. Howard does not oppose trade unions as such, but only their perversion for political ends. I'm convinced that Mr. Atwood does not oppose honest profit, but speculative profiteering. Of course, we disagree on many issues, but much more unites us than divides us. It's an old saying, but you can change your class and your creed, but you can't change the blood in your veins. but I'm afraid we've something else in common here. To use the light-hearted phrase we all feel, things ain't what they used to be. More seriously, we all of us observe a gradual decay, disintegration in our fortunes, and the fortunes of our nation. And perhaps there is a reason that we have a common enemy. Oh, of course, it looks like many, many different enemies. To the young lady, it's the college reds. To Mr. Atwood, it's the multinationals. To Mr. Things that in fact aren't opposites at all. You know, there are those who still laugh when we talk about conspiracy, even when we look at those people who are promoting immigration, even when we look at those supposed guardians of free enterprise who talk about detente and sell their grain to bolster Bolshevism. There are people still who laugh at the idea of conspiracy, a worldwide conspiracy. But there's one small group of men and women who don't laugh. There is one small growing party which knows what is happening and is determined to reverse it. That is Nation Forward. And I hope with all sincerity that you will wish to join this party, join with us, and make our country great again. Well, follow that. I think we'd best move straight to the vote. That the Tadley Patriotic League henceforth is amalgamated within and serves as a branch of the Nation Forward Party. I think that does it. All in favor? I think I can say on behalf of the whole movement how delighted I am at this decision. Gurjit Kiran, Prakash Patel, Bob Clifton, Sandy Clifton. How do you do? Hello. Right, so what do you want? We wondered, Mr. Clifton, if you knew about the Baron Kesting situation. Yeah, in part. And if, well, you could. We want support. Go on. We gave you ours. We voted for you, delegates from Thawston, and gave you our support. Now we want yours. I see. So could you, for the detail, fill me in? Well, Bob, as I was saying, not you, Paul. Well, the dispute at Barron's began as a conflict over retimed jobs required a higher workload for the same reward. And as only unskilled workers don't receive a bonus, and as are most, this job retiming is in itself discriminatory, but also this had highlighted discrimination and promotion, whereby high-paid Mulder's jobs have gone exclusively. Because of this, the unskilled workers, after due negotiation, have imposed a ban on overtime. Yeah, go on. There is a union, Association of Diecasters and Foundrymen. In fact, within the foundry, it was we who built the union. Now, for 5 weeks, we have fought banned overtime without assistance. We have passed motions, sent letters, proceeded through the correct channels, even when dismissal notices were served on us. They did nothing.